Before she sang, she was nobody except to God. One imagines the angel Gabriel, who gave her the message, double-checking his address. Nazareth, a rundown nothing town in an obscure corner of Rome's world, very far from Jerusalem. Before she sang, Mary tended the fire in a smoky two-room house with her mother. She was hardly old enough to have any child, much less the one she'd have. Before she sang, did she have much hope? Before she sang, could we have much? This peasant girl was the personal climax of the Old Testament and the first person of the New Testament, said Karl Barth. Her song remembers God's promise, and it anticipates the time of fulfillment beginning in her. She sang for all humanity in receiving God. Her song makes her the mother of God by faith before she was the mother of God by blood. Well, let me stop there and acknowledge the obvious embarrassment. An embarrassment for all people in the age of science. It gets worse knowing the virgin birth of Christ is one of the 5 core points of fundamentalist theology, a non-negotiable to be accepted literally, without question, on pain of eternal damnation. So my temptation is to move away, to sidestep the subject of a virgin conceiving and giving birth. But to do that would be to concede too much. That would be saying it means we speak only of the biological possibilities. And haven't 61 years of Christian life taught me that all things are possible with God, as the angel proclaimed to Mary? That humanity has no ability in and of itself to be the servant of God, none. Well, truly my years have taught me so little, because in fact I must relearn every day that God comes into the world in utter freedom. God does not meet us halfway. To somehow grasp Jesus' conception by the Spirit is a unique judgment against our widespread focus on self-reliance, strength, ability. Mr. Fix-It is unnecessary here. The entire patriarchal course and interpretation of history is judged hollow when God can be born without a patriarch. In a Christmas oratorio by W.H. Auden, the great poet, it says, "You must learn now that masculinity to nature is a non-essential luxury." Before she sang, she walked into the room with flour on her ear, and she found an angel leaning on the cupboard. "Greetings, favored one. The Lord is with you," he says. Such favor she did not imagine right away. To give birth to Jesus, to breastfeed him, to change his diapers, to teach him right from wrong, to pray with him at his bedside. Who else has received such favor? And yet, if we see by faith, we can see that every day we all truly receive such greetings, to see beyond the anticipated rite of passage, beyond the wedding day, beyond the career break, beyond the comfortable retirement we long for. Such goals are only shadows of that great place where we all long to dwell, don't we? We all long to look into the face that we've never seen. Wouldn't it be better for us if an angel were leaning against our cupboard in the kitchen when we turned around tomorrow morning? None of us is Mary, and yet Christ's life does unfold in our lives. She sang when the Messiah began to unfold in her life. So singing is appropriate. Lorraine and I attended a Taizé conference in Rome one year. They always go from the day after Christmas until New Year's. And we were there and we learned a new song in the universal language of Latin, not the biblical language, but a language of the ancient church. Magnificat, Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea, Dominu, Magnificat, Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea. Can you sing it? Just the first line. Magnificat, Magnificat. That's pretty easy. The second line is Magnificat anima mea, Dominu. Magnificat anima mea, Dominu. Magnificat, Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea. Now, all the way through. Magnificat, Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea, Dominu. Magnificat, Magnificat, Magnificat anima mea. My spirit, anima mea, magnifies the Lord. I wanted to give you that little earworm for Christmas. Because she sang, we can sing. She deserves all her titles, all her monuments, her paintings, her sculptures. She deserves her place, not because of what we do with her, but because of what God did with her. On this climactic day of Advent, perhaps you can hear in this text God saying to us, stand back and see what I am about to do. Because she sang, we know that nothing is impossible with God. I once saw in Paris a young woman in the subway. I refer to her as Madonna of the metro. She was very young. She had a very bad haircut, a rarity in Paris. And she was surrounded by children, none of whom were babies, but one was in her lap. They were talking to her all at once, all four of them. I would be insane in 5 minutes. No one. One little girl, 3 little boys. More cause for insanity. And all four were of a different race. Or to be more accurate, all four were of mixed race with marginal tendencies to various races. She was not singing, but she was speaking lovingly and happily. And when she deboarded the train, she held hands with 2 of the children, and she gently guided the other 2 through the crushing crowd without panic, without anger. All things are possible with God, thought I. Mary sang the first Christmas carol, a powerful challenge to the status quo, and it could not be more out of step with the way Christmas is celebrated today. Impossible to be more out of step. How could the way we celebrate Christmas possibly have begun with this story? Face it, preacher. Christmas stands for the status quo in the world. It is actually seen as an economic indicator. Average families will spend hundreds on things for Christmas. My heart tore open watching an older and a younger brother agonize over the purchase of a gift of expensive chocolate in an office supply store yesterday. 5 little pieces of chocolate for $3. Too many people believe that the more money they spend, the more fun they'll have. Or worse, that if they don't spend enough, they won't be loved. Parents feel enormous pressure to join in the buying frenzy, spending themselves deeply into debt. This, from the first Christmas carol that proclaims that God has filled the hungry with good things, lifted up the lowly, scattered the proud, brought down the powerful, and sent the rich empty away. Who are the rich? Who are the rich? Ernest Hemingway wrote about them. Let me quote him. During our last year in the mountains, new people came deep into our lives, and nothing was ever the same again. In a nightmare winter, disguised as the greatest fun of all, a murderous summer was to follow. It was the year that the rich showed up. Those who attract people by their happiness and their performance, he goes on, are usually inexperienced. They do not know how to be overrun and how to go away. They do not always learn about the good, the attractive, the charming, the soon beloved, the generous, the understanding rich, who have no bad qualities and who give each day the quality of a festival, and who, when they have passed and taken the nourishment they needed, leave everything deader than the roots of any grass that Attila the Hun's horse's hooves have ever scoured. Under the charm of these rich, said Hemingway, I was as trusting and as stupid as a bird dog who wants to go out with any man with a gun, or a trained pig in a circus who has finally found someone who loves and appreciates him for himself alone. That every day should be a fiesta seemed to me a marvelous discovery. When I read part of my novel to them, they said, "It's great, Ernest. Truly, it's great. You cannot know how great a thing it is." I wagged my tail in pleasure and plunged into the fiesta concept of life to see if I could not bring some fine, attractive stick back, instead of thinking, if these bat like it, what is wrong with it? In a million ways, beginning with the legalization of Christianity in the Roman Empire when Constantine was converted and made Christianity the established religion of the empire, the church has seen just what Hemingway described personally. We, at least in the developed world, are totally accommodated to the rich and a rich lifestyle. Are there even two people here today who don't aspire to being rich? Several churches I've served had homeless people sleeping regularly on our property. And yet most members did not even know how to greet, much less how to include them. Just let us get on with our Christmas carols, please. But in a sermon titled "A Knock at Midnight," Martin Luther King wrote, "Those who have gone to the church to seek the bread of economic justice have been left in the frustrating midnight of economic privation. In many cases, the church has aligned itself with the privileged classes and so defended the status quo that it has been unwilling to answer the knock of the poor. If the church does not recapture its prophetic zeal, it will become an irrelevant social club without moral or spiritual authority. If the church does not participate actively in the struggle for peace and for economic and racial justice, it will forfeit the loyalty of millions and cause people everywhere to say that it has atrophied its will. But if the church will free itself from the shackles of a deadening status quo and, recovering its great historic mission, will speak and act fearlessly and insistently in terms of justice and peace, it will enkindle the imagination of humankind and fire human souls, imbuing them with a glowing and ardent love for truth, justice, and peace. Folks far and near will know the church as a great fellowship of love that provides light and bread for lonely travelers at midnight." Mary sang when an angel gave her news that would sound terrible to so many. Magnificat, Magnificat. My soul magnifies, praises the Lord. You're unlikely to hear it among all the other carols, but it is their great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother. Her revolutionary song declares that the hungry are really the lucky ones, and the rich are in big trouble. She was overwhelmed and bewildered when the angel told her. She wondered what it meant, but she reached down deep inside and by faith sang a song that says her child will see life from the point of view of the disadvantaged, from the perspective of the weak. She sings that his coming will reveal the peril of trusting in our own wealth. Everything considered, success will become utterly irrelevant because her soul magnified the Lord, who has done great things. She sings in the past tense, but her song gives hope today to everyone who is in need. The Magnificat celebrates the future as a memory, and it praises God for having already done what lies before us to do. Every commercial you see says that Christmas is reserved for happy, successful people and smiling, wealthy families. That is not true. Christ comes for grieving people. Christ comes for people with broken homes and broken relationships. Appearances are deceiving. The people who look favored aren't. The self-centered don't have it made. Christmas is the promise that God cares for children who hunger for food, for the lonely who hunger for love, for all who hunger for hope. Where there is sadness, fear, or emptiness, there is where the Word becomes flesh. There, God dwells with us there. In dark valleys, in broken hearts. No matter how abandoned we may feel, no matter how painful our hurt, there is healing because she trusted and she sang. Her song turned the world upside down. It turned the world upside down. One song. God's ways are shocking and unexpected, but remember the angel's words. With God, nothing is impossible. Can you sing as she sang? Sing it. Now to God, who is able to do far more than anything we'd ever ask or think, according to the power that works within us, to God be glory in the church by Christ Jesus, now and tomorrow and forever.